Having established that the engine runs, we can carry on putting the bike together. So the radiator's on. And this little pipe down here is the live bleed from the water jacket inside the engine, which runs across the gearbox. It needs to go into there somewhere. Whoop. So little machine fitting to weld into the machine up a little fitting to weld into the radiator and get that taken care of. So here's our little weld-on fitting to go on the radiator, and as before, to hold it in place, pop a little M3 tapped hole in there, fire a bolt through it so it doesn't go anywhere when we weld it. Then when it's finished, take the bolt out, run a 3mm drill through the hole to get rid of the thread, and it's all good. And it's got a welding flange on it as well, otherwise you'd never be able to weld. I wouldn't be able to weld to that. Now to be able to ride the bike, we need to have a clutch and a throttle, among other things. That's our Harley clutch cable. But because the Harley gearbox went behind an engine which was a transverse V-twin and quite narrow, that cable used to go in where that bolt is, which on a V6 runs straight into the cylinder head. But luckily there's enough meat in that casting, we're able to make another hole just the same, in a different place, over here, which still works and just clears the cylinder head. And get on and fit that in there and spec the clutch cable, like so. And by some bizarre coincidence, in the motorbike world, the Harley clutch cable is pretty much the right length for the outboard motorbike. So I convert the strange stuff this end to suit a Suzuki clutch lever. We'll be in business there. As you can see, the radiator is in place. And here comes our electric water pump, which just sits in there. Further supported by the outlet pipe, which is the inlet pipe to the engine, obviously. Like so. That's all good. But I'm going to put a little bleed up here to let air out of the system when I fill it up with coolant. That's okay where it is. Here's our right-hand water pipe that I made this morning, a bit of sand-bent aluminium. Just fits into the radiator there, into the water outlet there, so water out of the engine, into the radiator, easy peasy. Having got this far, it's time to assemble this slightly weird monoshock rear suspension that Suzuki have provided for us. Starting with this little bell crack assembly that pops up into the frame here. I'll put the bolts in, I promise. Bolts are in. So next to the swing arm, and that thing was all covered in 30 years of grease and road grime and mud and everything else. And I was going to get it powder coated or something. But I thought I had to clean it first, obviously. Cleaned it with a mild solution of caustic soda and some Scotch-Brite, and all the dirt just fell off it and ended up looking okay. So it's going back on. And this bolt that runs through the whole assembly had to be taken out with a press. It was all corroded where it goes through the swing arm, so I've coated it in grease this time. I should have got it plated, obviously, but I didn't. Let's see how we go here. That was too easy because I forgot to put the dust seals on, but do that and we'll have a swing arm in place. And next, that horrible rusty thing on the left is what came off the Suzuki and had remote adjustable damping and a preload adjustment. And on the right is a lovely shock that the guys at Icon down at Albury made for me. to replace it. So we'll put the shiny new one in. And now with suitable spaces inserted into the joints, and the shock can go in like so. One like that. And the top probably needs the shock to come up to reach that. It's in, but not the bolt. We do this. There we go. Nothing connecting them both, but it's a start. With a fair amount of fruiting around with spacers and bolts and stuff and spring preloads, finally managed to get it all together. And hopefully when it's got some weight on it, it'll work okay. Now, part of the motivation for getting the monoshock and the swing arm on was so you could put the rear sprocket on and figure out what length of chain we need. That's the Suzuki sprocket and the old rusty Suzuki chain. But it's revealed a bit of a snag in the machine, in that the Harley sprocket at the front, well, not Harley, but is a proper modern sports bike, for a proper modern sports bike 530 chain. The old Suzuki chain is this big clunky 640 chain, 3/4 inch instead of 5/8 inch pitch, so it doesn't fit, which is a snag. And the way around this, because that's quite a complex thing, is to get a new sprocket for the back, machined to suit, and convert to a 530 chain. Just more time and money. Little shame because I already had that sprocket cleaned and plated and all bolted in place, but that's what we've got to do. Having established what we need to do with the chain, it clears the way to get on and assemble the clutch and clutch housing. This goes on there, bolts on here. Need some silicone around there to seal the oil in, but you don't need to watch me doing that. And what you can see here, you may recall, is our little taper lock hub for the drive sprocket for the clutch, which has now been balanced because that runs at twice engine speed, which could be 12,000 RPM, so it'd be good if it's balanced. It goes on there, clutch goes on there. We need to put it on together with the chain. Hopefully, like so, all being well, he says. There you go, tighten that up so it doesn't spin, and there we have the drive sneaking itself ever closer to the back wheel. That funny looking red thing that's just appeared as a front mudguard bracket, painted the same colour as the brake calipers and the same as the wheels will be, and that's our foot peg and brake pedal bracket, which we need to put on there to mount the mufflers, which also enables us to fit the rear master cylinder and this little reservoir. So all that gubbins is on, even with a working brake pedal. The next thing to do is pop the exhaust on, which is deathly simple. Just hangs there like that. So next time we start it up, it'll sound different. Our brake lever and master cylinders appeared, which plumbs into this bizarre little junction box the Suzuki have made, which has got cooling fins on it, which is a funny thing to do, putting cooling fins on a thing that doesn't get hot. Anyway, and here is our little instrument pod, now wired up with indicator and high beam lights, And appearing here, right now, is Darth Vader's headlight, already wired up and ready to go. Maybe not very exciting for the populace in general, but in the interest of simplicity, I've got it rigged up like a modern bike so that when you turn the ignition on, the headlights come on straight away, and the little, what was a high and low beam and Parker thing is now just a high and low beam light switch rather, so it's either high or low, high or low. On a high beam, the light comes on and the light's on the temperature gauge as well, so it's got power. Let's go.